Folks, today is Friday, October 5th, 2018. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Coming up in the next hour, guilty. Chicago cop Jason Van Dyke found guilty of second-degree murder in the shooting death of Laquan McDonald. It has been more than 50 years since a Chicago cop has been convicted for murdering someone on duty. We will break down all aspects of this case. The jury, what was their decision? Also, we'll talk to a reporter who has covered the trial, plus activists in Chicago will go live there as well, and talk with our panel as well about how significant of a case this is. In Washington, D.C., all the focus today was on Brett Kavanaugh and the decision by 3 United States senators as to how they were going to vote. The reality is he will likely be the next Supreme Court justice now that Senator Susan Collins has said she will vote in the affirmative. Plus, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin will break that down for you as well. Now, yesterday, we gave the truth about Donald Trump in terms of what he hasn't done for black folks, but all of a sudden he says black people are just coming up to him everywhere saying thank you. Have y'all seen his rallies? I ain't seen many black people at his rallies. Who the hell is walking up to him saying thank you? We'll break it down. Plus, the new unemployment numbers are out. Job growth is weak, but unemployment is down to its lowest level since 1969. We'll break down what the numbers show for African Americans. And also, I posted a video earlier on Instagram, and all these people just got all holier than thou and all upset. Oh my God, how dare you? Posted a video of this woman dancing. Well, sexologist Michelle Hope is going to be here, and she's not going to have a very interesting conversation about that and how, frankly, clueless some people are. Yo, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, what a sight seeing Jason Van Dyke, the Chicago cop, led away in handcuffs after a jury gave their verdict guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Laquan McDonald. Van Dyke is the first Chicago police officer in half a century to be found guilty of murder for an on-duty shooting. He'll face a minimum of 6 years in prison when he is sentenced by the judge. Folks, here's the verdict as it was read in the courtroom this afternoon in Chicago.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of second-degree murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, first shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, second shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, third shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, fourth shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, fifth shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, sixth shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, seventh shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, eighth shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, ninth shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, 10th shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, 11th shot. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with firearm, 12 shots. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with firearm, 13 shots. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with firearm, 14 shots. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with firearm, 15 shots. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, guilty of aggravated battery with firearm, 16 shots. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Van Dyke, not guilty of official.
Well, he got one good piece of good news right there, not guilty when it came to official misconduct. I wanted you to see or listen to the jury giving all of those guilty verdicts, because it is very rare to see a police officer who is convicted of killing somebody on the line of duty, especially someone who is African American. Again, he can serve a minimum of 6 years. He must serve 85% of that term, the judge, but it could go up to 20 years. Now, the other issue, though, is that the jury could have found him guilty of first-degree murder, which could carry a life sentence. They chose, though, to actually downgrade it to second-degree murder. Let's go to reporter Domati Pongo, who, of course, has been covering this whole trial for us. Domati, this has been very interesting when you look at this decision. And even though there are people who are very, I won't say excited, but pleased that he was found guilty, it still, though, speaks to the fundamental issue of juries unwilling to find officers guilty of first-degree murder.
Yeah, absolutely. And so people are kind of wrestling with that. Folks are calling it bittersweet. Now, the second-degree murder charge, people were, we talked about this, worried that that carries a far lesser sentence. It could carry only probation, but those aggravated battery charges have a range of 6 to up to 30 years. And so that is giving people, we've got protests already happening right now in the streets, which is a mix of celebrating and a mix of saying that sentencing needs to reflect what it is that Jason Van Dyke did.
And Domati, again, on that issue, when you look at when the judge gave his instructions, he did tell them that they did not have to find him guilty on first-degree murder. He gave them that option. Now, one of the things that jumps out, he was indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder.
Yeah, and we, really interesting here at WGN Radio, we just got done speaking with State's Attorney Anita Alvarez, who is actually taking credit for filing those first charges. She was asked
First
the question.
of all, hold on, stop. Anita Alvarez, what the hell is she taking credit for? Because she was the one who didn't do a damn thing when it came to this case, and it wasn't until 2 journalists forced a video to be released to the public where we actually found out what happened. She didn't do a damn thing for 4 years with Jason Van Dyke. That's one of the reasons why she lost to Kim Fox.
And the host pushed back on that and said, well, listen, this case was buried for so long. And following this case, there's going to be an investigation into the whole cover up. I mean, there was the leak of the mayor's office emails talking about the case. There were police reports that were corroborated among officers that said something totally different than what actually happened on camera. And like you said, that shooting happened in 2014. It took for William Calloway to sue and submit a FOIA to get the police dashboard camera video released. Brandon Smith to help with that FOIA to get that released. It took for Jamie Calvin, an independent journalist. All of these people are independent journalists, not even institution or general market journalists, who pushed to get all of this information, such as the autopsy report, released out to the public. So it does seem a bit audacious for Anita Alvarez to be taking a victory lap as well. See, she commended the county prosecutor, the special prosecutor in the case, for mentioning those charges that she filed. And then the question was, wait a minute, you filed the first-degree murder charges, but not the second. Well, she said, well, the judge in the case said that you have to go through the prosecution trying to prove that first-degree murder charge before you can even get to the second-degree murder charge. So she's still taking a victory lap based on that.
I also want to bring in Janae Bonsu, co-director of Black Youth Project 100, BYP 100. Also, attorney Chris Stewart, managing partner for Stewart, Say, and Felton out of Atlanta. First and foremost, Janae, I want to go to you. BYP 100 out of Chicago, y'all have been very aggressive in protesting there in Chicago, bringing light not just to this case, but so many others when it comes to police misconduct of Chicago police. Your initial thoughts on the guilty verdict of Jason Van Dyke?
Yeah, I think largely in Chicago right now is it's a time of celebration, but also great ambivalence. I'm less interested in whether the conviction should have been a first-degree murder than I am about changing the conditions that allowed Laquan's murder to happen in the first place. It's a time of reckoning in Chicago right now. This conviction, comes a month after Rahm Emanuel announced that he's not seeking re-election. As you already mentioned yourself, Roland, that we fired Anita. It was grassroots organizing that helped that to happen, to push her out of office, to hold her accountable, not just for this cover-up, but for her whole history in criminalizing Black communities wholesale. This is after pushing Gary McCarthy out, who was then superintendent at the time. And so is this justice? I don't know. It's better than not guilty, but it's also not going to bring Laquan back. The harm has been done. No conviction will bring Laquan back.
Chris, I want to go to you. Prosecutors, I'm reading the Chicago Sun-Times story. It says prosecutors would have needed to prove that Van Dyke shot McDonald, quote, without lawful justification in light of Illinois' law on the use of deadly force by police. Now, that's what they would need to do to win a conviction on first-degree murder. Again, this is one of those examples to me where the law gives so much leeway to police officers that it makes it very difficult to rise to that level to convict on first-degree murder.
It is. The extenuating circumstance that I think that they got to second instead of first is that he had the pocket knife, which we know didn't have anything to do with the shooting. He wasn't a threat to the officers, and that bumped it down to the second. But
in fact, Chris, 1 second. In fact, in reading the Sun-Times story, they say the second-degree murder verdict against Van Dyke means that jurors agreed that Van Dyke was guilty of first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt, but that a mitigating factor caused him to shoot McDonald, which was the knife.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how they ended up getting to the second. But he's going to get hammered because those 16 ag assault convictions don't get combined. My understanding is that he'll get 6 years for each charge potentially. So it's huge. But, this is a great victory today. But what about the cover-up? This situation happens all the time. I'm in Chicago every month fighting the Antoine Galat case where he was shot and they covered it up. Same thing. They lied in their police reports. They lied about what happened. It's an epidemic that has to stop.
And in fact, if folks out there, and Janae, I want to go to you on this very issue, and we've been covering this. The reality is we know of Chicago police officers, including bosses of Jason Van Dyke, who did all they could to protect him. You have the officers who went to the Burger King, who destroyed video evidence. You have the officers who lied in terms of the circumstances of Laquan McDonald charging them. From the moment Laquan McDonald was shot, the blue wall actually was erected around Jason Van Dyke, and they tried everything they could to cover up what took place. This is one of the reasons why people don't trust the Chicago Police Department, because they are willing to lie to protect one of their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the police department swiftly constructed this narrative that media and, everyday people really even challenged. This constructed narrative of, I feared for my life. It was self-defense, had to do what I had to do. A Black person is dead, and no one thinks twice about it. And so one thing that I hope that is a takeaway from this trial is that we have to take these narratives with a grain of salt. And we have to continue to push for what grassroots activists have been pushing for a long time: community control over police. The CPAC legislation, Civilian Police Accountability Council, is still just languishing in city council right now. Police still get $4 million a day in Chicago. In the neighborhood that Laquan came from, and all the structural conditions that led him to where he is, they're still underfunded. There's still unemployment in these neighborhoods. All of these structural conditions, and so FLP contract still has loopholes that allow Chicago cops to get away with murder, right? And so there's still a lot more work to do. I don't want to undermine this. Delivery of justice with the system that we currently have now, right? But there's still so much more work to do because Jason Van Dyke is not just a bad apple. He's fruit of a rotten tree, right? And so we still have to reconcile the entire institution of policing, particularly in Chicago, that we still have to deal with.
And Chris, in going to you, I mean, again, it was a few weeks ago when Attorney General Jeff Sessions spoke nearby Chicago and pretty much said the stress they're under and how these consent decrees are having an impact because officers are choosing not to police. Well, first of all, you would think the Attorney General of the United States should have said to cops, do your job, even if somebody is accusing you of crimes. But what we have here, we have a culture in this country where individuals want to protect cops at all costs, and they don't care about the citizens, even in their constitutional rights.
It's sad. I mean, especially with this administration, they've done more behind the scenes to harm civil rights and repeal a lot of the consent decrees that were in place before that just doesn't get discussed on the news. It's just about Trump and not about what they're doing to civil rights and the Justice Department. But the biggest problem, you know, which is why I handle civil rights and I fight for these cases, that police officers are supposed to be heroes. They're supposed to be the bravest. They're not supposed to get scared and shoot a kid who has a little pocket knife. They're supposed to de-escalate, like the juror said. But the problem is they're acting more as executioners in some situations instead of a hero. And that has to stop. And it only will stop with things like with verdicts like today.
Janae, no word as to whether or not the Department of Justice will pursue any civil rights violation charges against Jason Van Dyke, even though he has been convicted there in state court. Do you believe that or will you and others put pressure on DOJ to also seek civil rights charges against Jason Van Dyke?
Well, there hasn't currently been any conversations or, push to ask DOJ or pressure DOJ to bring those charges. Especially as an abolitionist organization, I don't think that we are looking to DOJ for justice in this situation. Jason Van Dyke was convicted. The jury ruled in a way that sees his actions for what they were, which is murder and disregard for Black life. And we're going to continue to work on the ground for the changes, wholesale transformation in the city of Chicago that we've been fighting for.
Last question for you, Chris Stewart. Do you see anything in this case where Jason Van Dyke should be brought up on civil rights violations in the shooting death of Laquan McDonald?
Of course, but with this administration, it'll never happen. You see what happened with my Alton Sterling case. DOJ failed to do their job and get involved and bring charges. We won't get any type of civil rights progression or, activity until this presidency is over.
All right. Janae Bonsu, as well as Chris Stewart, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. And is Domati Pongo still there? He's still there? Yeah. Domati, I do want to ask you the question. Did anybody bring that up at any of the news conferences about the possibility of pursuing civil rights charges against Jason Van Dyke?
I haven't yet heard that. At the news conferences, I was on the ground at the protests, and that is one of the number one things that they're talking about. They're talking about bringing those civil rights charges and also talking about reforming the police department from bottom up, as Janae and Chris said. I mean, there needs to be a new standard of what use of force is. When you talk about whether someone was fearing for their life, if they have unconscious bias and they're legitimately scared every time they see an African-American face, then yes, they flee for their life. Now, is that fear justified and does it make sense? That's something that isn't talked about. It needs to be objective. And that's what a lot of activists are talking about and what they have been mobilizing around. And also talking about these, as it relates to the civil rights issue, these stop and frisk policies here in Chicago. 70% of the people stopped and frisked are African Americans. We only make up 30% of the city. And that's something that the ACLU and independent report found. And this is what Loretta Lynch talked about when she first investigated the Chicago Police Department. So activists are leveraging that as well as they try to call for civil rights violations. All right, then. Domati, we certainly appreciate all your reporting on this, and we certainly will watch to see what happens next. But as we speak, Domati, thanks a lot. As we speak, Jason Van Dyke, he is sitting in jail, and we transferred to a state prison. Let's go to our panel. We have political commentator Dr. Wendy Osefo, of course, Johns Hopkins, Brandon Cooper, chairman of the PG County Republican Party, and also via Skype, Ray Baker, host of the Public Agenda podcast. Wendy, I'll start with you. Do you feel as if justice has been served in the case of Jason Van Dyke?
Today, justice has been served, but tomorrow the fight must continue. We have to, be able to stand and say, you know, the little wins are okay. But this is just a piece of the larger issue, which is the police department, not just the Chicago police, but the police department has a culture of corruption. They have a culture of doing violence against black and brown bodies. They have a culture of protecting each other even when they know something is wrong. That is the issue. That is the issue why Laquan McDaniel is not here. And as long as that continues to be alive, we will have many more hashtags. And that is my issue. My issue is, yes, this is something historic. This has not been done in 50 years, over 50 years. But then the question then becomes, what happens tomorrow? What happens when another hashtag is trending? Until we can infiltrate these systems and change these systems, then we will continue to see these same type of things.
Brandon.
No, I don't think 6 years for a cold-blooded murder is justice. So
no, but here's the deal, a little bit before you go there. So according to, again, the story you're reading here, as Chris Stewart said, it's minimum of 6 years of second-degree murder. But each one of those charges, for each one of those shots, also carries 6 years. The defense wants themselves concurrently. And so we'll see what the judge
minimum
decides.
of 6 years. That's still the baseline. It could be more, up to 20.
Yeah, it could be more. Could be more.
To me, that's not justice. So to the point of the cover-up and the culture you're talking about, let's not forget that 3 police officers right now in Chicago have been charged for conspiracy and cover-up of this case. You mentioned his superior, his boss, also his partner, Van Dyke's partner.
Right.
There's 3 police officers right now.
Others retired.
Yeah, right. One is, and one's still on the force. So those 3 police officers were indicted. You know, you like to talk about unindicted co-conspirators. Rahm Emanuel, I think, fits that bill perfectly. The fact that he's still in office is a shame of itself. So no, I don't think it's justice per se. I think it's progress and a step forward. But as you mentioned, this is the first time in 50 years, and do we have another 50 years for another officer to be charged?
Ray Baker, again, there are numerous other cases. I mean, I'll bring up Dante Servin, off-duty cop, sees a discussion taking place. He decides to jump in. Argument escalates. He pulls his gun out, shoots Rakia Boyd in the head, kills her. Anita Alvarez charges him, but then when they go to court, the judge says she made the wrong charge and he was released. Didn't serve, first of all, never went to trial, didn't serve 1 day in jail, and he killed Rakia Boyd in cold blood. There are numerous other cases of Chicago police officers who have killed folks, and there has been no justice whatsoever. Your thoughts about justice in this case?
I like what Dr. Wendy Asefo had told us earlier, that this was individualized justice, not institutionalized justice. And the thing that's important to remember there, as some of our panelists have outlined, as your organizer from BYP 100 outlined, that's so important to understand the difference. Because if we have to continue to come back to the criminal justice system time and time again just to plead for individual justice, that means wholesale progress and change has not happened. But if we see law enforcement officers are willing to be honest about their partners when their partners are doing wrong, then we will begin to see institutionalized change that won't make this not happen anymore. Let's not forget, this is not exclusive to Chicago. We saw the video of Walter Scott being shot in South Carolina. There was a black officer assisting Michael Slager who helped plant the gun or the taser or whatever that was near Walter Scott's body when they were going to concoct their story about how Mr. Scott was a threat to them. So we have to work for institutionalized justice if we expect to see these minor acts to be important. Now, again, for the family of Laquan McDonald, for those citizens who organized and labored out in Chicago, it is important to get the victories, as small or large as they are, because without them, what do we have to sustain us? But it is also important to recognize the difference between individual justice and institutional justice.
Well, and to Ray's point there, the officer who killed Walter Scott went to prison not on murder charges. It was a hung jury. He went to prison because he cut a deal and pleaded guilty to civil rights violations.
Yeah. And I want to share, I definitely agree that under this DOJ, I'm not a fan of Jeff Sessions, never thought he should have been appointed, and I hope that he gets fired, the next one that Trump's fired. But institutional justice that you're talking about is going to come on the state level. We go back to Trayvon Martin. Obama's DOJ did not bring civil rights charges. It's up to the state level, the state prosecutors we talked about. That's where the front line of this defense is. So I understand the anger at the DOJ and the consent decrees. I'm not saying we don't want to focus on that, but we cannot forget the fight and the battle that's taking place on the local level.
No, I think it's both. No, and the reason I'm bringing up the civil rights violation,
heavier on the local level.
Well, no, of course. First of all, that's the first line.
I'm glad
Absolutely.
What happens on the state.
Absolutely.
Which is what we talked about, which is the reason why Anita Alvarez doesn't have a job.
That's right.
Because she was thrown out.
That's right.
That's what happened there. But the point I'm still making, though, is that historically what we have seen was when justice didn't take place on the state level, you still had DOJ.
Right.
And even in this case, even though he is found not guilty of second-degree murder, DOJ can still pursue civil rights charges.
That's right.
But what we have now, though, is the Department of Justice under President Obama, and I would say it's even worse under Trump, in that the DOJ is so skittish with somehow, in their mind, if it is not perfect, they won't even attempt to pursue a case, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, look, try the case, and if you lose, but don't do anything.
Right.
Yeah, the laws are definitely stacked against justice.
And I think that that's the big argument here is we have to do something. And yes, this is individualized and it's something for us to celebrate, but we have to look at the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture here is coming from someone who lives in Baltimore and was on the ground when everything happened with Freddie Gray. This is something that continues to happen all of the time. And as the mother of 2 black boys, I'm coming at this from a personal level. Like, yes, I'm sure that the family of Laquan feels a sense of relief today, especially like how the jurors called each count one by one with each bullet. However, we need to make sure that there is not another Laquan McDaniel, because that is when we are going to see big time change, and that's what we're looking for. Well, again, hopefully Ray Baker will see these changes in the police departments, but here's the thing. As long as you have police unions who are protecting their own, as long as you have fellow officers who will lie, who will put their careers on the line and lie. And I still say this here. This is very simple. If Ray Baker or Brandon or Wendy or myself, if any of us filed a false police report and lied in it, we can be pursued on criminal charges. Yes. I fundamentally believe that it should be put in every single one of these contracts. If an officer lies in a police report, automatic firing. That's right. Not suspension, not discipline, automatic firing. And what should also happen is that it should be in there. If an officer is convicted, again, lose that pension, lose the money, because as long as the city taxpayers are paying for their defense, Ray, they're going to keep doing whatever. But you hit them in the pocketbook, it's going to change their behavior.
Yeah, I think you hit a really good point there, Roland. And one of the things we're seeing, and this is, I'm coming as a person who has done some work on behalf of and in defense of labor unions time and time again. The unions for police officers largely are not functioning in the way that any self-respecting labor union in the United States has functioned for a number of years. They are functioning ostensibly as gangs. And this is not my idea. Charlene Carruthers, who's out of New York, Chicago, has echoed this initially. They are functioning in gangs in ways that protect people, that create this idea of individualized bad apples, where in almost any other line of work, a bad apple may have an adverse situation with someone they serve. Whereas in law enforcement, when they have a bad apple, it is taking people's lives. And we can't afford to continue to have situations where people's lives are being lost because of these so-called, air quote, bad apples. Maryland, for example, I know Brandon's familiar with Maryland. I learned that Dr. Osefo is from Baltimore as well. And Maryland, for example, has what they call the LEBOR, the Law Enforcement's Bill of Rights, which means should a law enforcement officer have a situation where a citizen dies in their hands, that law enforcement officer has up to a week to organize their thoughts, their plans, and then before they have to go and give a report and accounting for. That's not so for any other profession. That's not so for any other. If you have a car accident with a bus driver, that bus driver has to get out there and give their statement at that moment. I'm sure the folks from the ATU would happily take a week to get their story together, but we have to find a consistency if we want to have accountability. But ultimately, we know we don't have this because police, unfortunately and sadly, have not functioned as what we heard one of your previous guests say, which is simply to be the heroes of our society. They've functioned to protect property and class, and more often than not, that means whiteness.
All right, folks, let's go to our next story. Today in Washington, D.C., all the attention was on Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The question was, who would vote for him? Who would vote against him? After today's cloture vote, it was Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska who said she was not going to be voting for Brett Kavanaugh. She voted against enclosure, but of course you had Arizona Senator Jeff Flake as well as Maine Senator Susan Collins, who both voted for him. Well, it was at 3 p.m. Eastern when Susan Collins announced in a long-winded 1-hour speech, which could have been very simple, where she said that she was going to vote for Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, but then she also said, which was very weird, that she also believed Dr. Christine Ford, which was kind of weird that you believed her, but then you said there was nothing there to say Kavanaugh did it. Okay, that made no sense whatsoever. And then shortly after she made that decision, it was Democrat Joe Manchin of West Virginia who came out and said he was going to vote for. So as it stands right now, if all of these votes line up, he will be confirmed with a 51-49 vote. Mitch McConnell, you remember him, the one who held open the Supreme Court seat for 243 days after Merrick Garland was appointed by President Barack Obama. Here's what he had to say. All right, so we don't have sound on McConnell. Again, there were a lot of folks who were angry, shouting in the hallways of Congress, left and right. Let's go to our panel here. Brandon, when I was reading, you were clapping.
Oh, no, on the vote that confirmed him again. Elections have consequences, and I understand that people have different philosophical differences with Brett Kavanaugh's record. But at the end of the day, I think the highly politicization of this process is a shame, and it's new law in politics. And I'm hopeful that, as Susan Collins says, I'm not, really hopeful on it, but maybe it does happen, that we kind of end this partisan bickering that's going on. I'm used to having it in the legislative branch and executive branch, but not so much judicial branch. Again, you talk about the Merrick Garland who was held up again. That's rightful in the past to be upset about. But Merrick Garland and Brett Kavanaugh served in the court at the same time, DC Circuit Court. They share 97% of the opinions. They were on the same side. So this idea that Brett Kavanaugh was some type of radical, extremist vote. It was not. This was a display of politics that we saw in the nation.
So if they shared 97% of the time, why in the hell did Republicans give Merrick Garland a hearing?
I'm not saying I agree with that. Again, that's politics at play.
Wait.
Politics at play.
Hold on a second. So if you criticize the politics of Democrats now,
there we go. I said both sides.
Okay.
Both sides.
Were Republicans wrong?
Yes.
To not give Merrick Garland a hearing and take an up or down vote?
Yes. 100%. I said that many times. They should have voted. If you want to vote no, vote no. But I believe that the president, whether it's Obama or Trump, the Constitution gives them great leeway. That's the consequence of election. And the only thing the Senate should do is advise consent on the qualifications. And we've seen it not just this year, but the past 20 years, a slow drip towards partisanship in this process.
You know what? I just think it's really shameful that you're here talking about philosophies and ideologies when we all know that the opposition against Kavanaugh was not based upon that. It was really based upon, largely now, what we're talking about, what has led to the dramatics and the sitcom-like rolling out that we have seen within the last week has been because of the accusations levied against him. So as a woman, I am looking at you and I'm just raising my eyebrows because we are continuously under attack. We have a woman, Dr. Ford, who came forth and said, this is what happened to me. On top of that, we also have individuals that he went to school with saying that the Brett Kavanaugh that he categorized himself to be is not who he was. So excuse me, let me finish. Let me finish. So what I think is the issue here is the fact that no matter what, Republicans are going to vote for him even if his character is extremely flawed. Even an ex-Supreme Court justice came out and said he does not deserve to be on the bench. So what I'm saying to you today is you can throw around Merrick Garland, you could throw around partisan politics. Yes, I believe that that's a play here. But what's dominant here is that this man is going to attack everything that I stand for as a woman, and that is problematic.
Okay, but Susan Collins is a woman as well, so she's supporting that. So I understand.
Yeah, but she's a Republican. She's a Republican.
Okay, so it don't matter. It don't matter.
No, don't do that. Don't put words in my mouth because I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You pulled the woman card, and I'm just saying again,
I did.
I can't pull that card, but I'm pointing to Susan Collins. But back to your point, you're saying that this was about the accusations. Then why did the Democrat senators come out against this nominee the day he was nominated, way before the allegation came forward? So I understand you're saying
Did you not hear what I just said?
You said
I
this
said
was
within the last. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I just said. I said within the last week.
Brandon, didn't you earlier say politics? I mean,
no, I'm saying, but you're trying to make the more
Brandon. There are Republicans who, if this was a Democratic president, Republicans would have cut. First of all, hold up. Let's remember, it was Senator Ted Cruz, Republican Ray Baker, who said, if Hillary Clinton wins the presidency, we should leave the Supreme Court at 8 and keep the seat open for 4 years.
Both sides have it.
Ray Baker.
I'm not going to pick on our friend Brandon there for the both sides talk that he does, because that seems to be our Republican friend's only way to justify what we would call questionable political behavior. But I will say this, and this is something to keep in mind.
No, hell no. Ain't no 3 against 1.
Yeah, no.
I'm simply asking you a question.
And I
it's not
said
3
both
against
sides,
1.
both
So
sides.
stop all that.
No, I'm not.
Hold on.
No.
Stop whining about.
I'm not
No,
whining at
don't
all.
whine
I'm
about
stating
3.
facts.
No,
I'm stating
don't
facts.
whine
You guys
about.
handle the
Don't
facts.
whine about 3
You
against
guys
1.
handle the facts.
When
They
here's
came
the
out
deal.
against this
Here's the
company.
deal. If you know how to debate, I don't care if it's 10 against 1. I'm gonna take on all y'all.
That's right.
So don't
And I
whine about
come
3
here
against
every
1.
time.
Ray
And I'm
Baker,
taking
go
you guys
ahead.
That's
on.
right.
I come here every time.
Ray, go ahead.
I will say this, though, and this is for Brandon. This is for every Republican or conservative who sides with Judge Kavanaugh, who sides ostensibly with President Trump. To side with Judge Kavanaugh, to side with President Trump, does not indict you yourself of being a sexist. It does tell the rest of us, though, that sexism isn't a problem for you.
That's right.
And that's problematic for a number of us. That's problematic for me. That's problematic clearly for Dr. Asefo. And that's clearly not problematic for Susan Collins. And I understand that you reference her. But Dr. Lawrence Brown of Morgan State University tells us that identity is not the only thing that matters when it comes to representation. You can't have diversity for sake of appearance if that diversity is still representing the hierarchical oppression of the power class. Susan Collins epitomizes this time and time again. So we have to say that. The second point we have to say is that Mr. Kavanaugh has demonstrated, according to the American Bar Association and according to a number of other neutral judicial parties, that he would be a rather conservative, in fact, more extreme, more than Judge Gorsuch, more than Justice Alito, more than Justice Roberts, Supreme Court Justice. Now, to your point of elections having consequences, fair enough. So they do. So too does voter suppression have consequences. So if we're going to talk about who won elections, and if we're going to bring this back to elections, then let's have a wide macro level scale with that conversation. But I don't imagine that's something that our Republican friends want to do, because they overwhelmingly are the ones who tend to rig the electoral game. So if we want to have that conversation, we're not going to have it in a well, both sides do wrong kind of way. We're going to have it in an honest and sincere kind of way. And those who are wrong have to be wrong. And those who just don't have that much of a problem with sexism have to be honest about that.
Okay.
Brandon?
Okay, 2 points to that. You said the ABA, American Bar Association, they gave him a unanimous approval, their highest rating for Judge Kavanaugh.
Brandon,
Brandon, are
you leaving something out?
What did I say?
Are you leaving something
Yes.
out?
They
Yes.
reopened
Are you leaving something
I
out?
am not. They reopened it this week.
Ray?
Yes, they said that they were going to reopen investigation and relook at how they rated him, given the new information they found out about him. So yes, Brandon, when they first nominated Brett Kavanaugh,
No, Brandon, go ahead. Brandon, 1 second. Brandon, the only reason I bring that up, because when Susan Collins did it earlier, she conveniently left out that the ABA was doing that. But go ahead.
You conveniently said that he was way more conservative than Gorsuch and other people. I'm saying again, if you look at the record, 97% in lock and step with Merrick Garland. I understand you're making this point. As a Republican activist, we were disappointed that he did not pick a more conservative pick. Brett Kavanaugh was, I know you don't agree with this philosophy, he was the easy pick. They thought they can get him through. There are 6 other people on Trump's list who are way more conservative than Brett Kavanaugh. Do you have not read the list? They were way more conservative. Again, I understand it's not the list that you will want.
No. First of all,
I understand that.
It has Brandon.
Let me finish.
Brandon, it has absolutely nothing to do with my thoughts on a list. The reality is this here. The only reason Mitch McConnell said Brett Kavanaugh will be far more difficult to get through was because of his long paper trail. No, Mitch McConnell said to Trump, don't appoint Kavanaugh, not because he wasn't conservative, but because of the long paper trail serving in the Bush administration.
I understand.
But this idea that he's not conservative enough, bro, come on.
Bro, come on. As someone who is a conservative, go
Brandon, here we go. He was perfectly.
I'm listening.
He was raised up by the Federalist Society. What are you talking about?
Because, Roland, I'm telling you this. If you go to conservative activist lawyers like Mark Levin, who was the Attorney General and Chief of Staff under Reagan, the criticism from the right, not your side. I understand that you.
No, hold on. Let me help you out. Let me help with your little side.
Let me finish.
First of all, it's not my side. Because, see, I know folks on your side. I know folks on Ray's side. I don't play the side game.
Let me know when I can finish my thought.
No. I'll let you finish, but I'm going to correct you. See, I don't play the side game. The side I'm on is truth. And the truth is Brett Kavanaugh is a far right-wing conservative judge. Brett Kavanaugh, when he was being doing the testimony, he said in the hearing. He said, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative Republican, and I am a supporter of George W. Bush. His own words.
Yes.
Okay, can I finish now?
Go.
Okay, go back to this again. I understand you want to throw around words like far right wing. I know that's just buzzword, a trigger word.
Come on.
There's no definition to that. Again, let me finish. Can I finish?
It's a fact.
Let me go back. Can I finish my thought?
You're debating
Can I get a thought
facts.
through? Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead. Now, hold on, Wendy. Go ahead. Go ahead and explain to me how he somehow is moderate.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this word has no definition, first off. Secondly, I'm pointing out
it got
the fact
definition.
It does not. First off, I'm pointing out the fact also was that when Judge Kavanaugh was first appointed to D.C. court, he had to go through the Senate too. Was this divisive then? No, he got over 80% of the vote.
Oh, hell, Brandon, do you want to go there? Loretta Lynch sailed through twice in the United States Senate.
Yes.
Republicans held up her.
Again,
No, one second.
Both sides are false. Don't point me as a partisan.
Don't whine by saying, no, Brandon. No, what you're doing, Brandon, you're saying, oh my God, he got 80% of the votes. You would know as I know, when you go higher up, especially the Supreme Court, it's a different level of focus.
Okay, y'all want to pretend like he's some controversial pick.
He is controversial, and every time you say that, it's a slap in the face.
Wendy, make your comment. Ray Baker, Brandon, final comment. Go ahead. Brandon, I said Wendy. Go.
My comment is I do agree with you on one thing. Elections do have consequences. And now what we have to do is we have to know that at the end of the day, November is going to be a key moment for a lot of people. When people say, why does Kavanaugh matter? Why does this things matter? We have Supreme Court cases that are not even up yet that this guy is going to oversee. So yes, Kavanaugh is going to sit on the bench. But I want you guys to remember things like Madison versus Alabama, where it's going to decide whether an individual who is incarcerated can be executed if he has a mental disorder. We're going to think about Nielsen v. Prep, where it decides issues around immigration. So yes, all of these things matter. So we have to make sure that we're not just looking at Kavanaugh in a vacuum, but to understand the bigger picture, which is he is going to sit on the bench and decide a lot of key votes. And that matters. So yes, elections have consequences.
Ray Baker?
I'm curious that there is more people than simply Judge Brett Kavanaugh who would do such things, in my opinion, heinous things, as roll back Roe v. Wade and things of the sort. But why must they choose a man who, by many intents and purposes, is a sexual assaulter to do this? And so if my question becomes, if this is so important to you ideologically, because there's not anyone who's never committed a sexual assault that you could find to do this. Is there not anyone who did not have a habitual raging beer drinking problem in undergrad or in their high school years that you could find to do this? Is there not anyone with any type of moral upstanding character from the party of personal responsibility that you could find to do this job?
Brandon, final comment?
Just 2 points on this again. I understand you like to throw around Roe v. Wade and all this other stuff like that, and I agree that it's an important precedent that's been established. But this same argument was made against Souter, and again, please don't interrupt me, a Republican nominee who was appointed. That what is it called? Planned Parenthood and all those organizations actually had pens saying that deaf women will die if Souter is nominated. He actually ended up voting to reaffirm the pro-life precedent that's set by Supreme Court. Can I finish?
Are you saying Kavanaugh is Souter?
No. What I'm saying is, again, these same arguments that my friend Ray Baker is making, these same exaggerations that, oh my God, if he's appointed, they're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. That is dusted off from the same argument they used against another Republican nominee 20 years ago.
Are these the same?
Hold on. But that nominee ended up reaffirming that. So all I'm saying is this fear-mongering that Ray Barker is trying to play is great, but it's been proven wrong in the past.
Didn't your side say Kagan, Sotomayor? Didn't you say your side? Didn't your side say Kagan and Sotomayor they were going to take all the guns?
So now we're doing both sides again?
No, I'm asking you a question.
And I agreed. Both sides. I'm going to make sure I'm very clear to everyone that's watching. Both sides play politics. I never ran away from that. But we're talking right now about Brett Kavanaugh. Secondly, Ray Barker, if I can just finish with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we don't want to play the identity card. You did the women card earlier. As a black man, all I can say is this. I understand you, in your mind, these accusations that the FBI have found are not corroborated are set in stone as fact. There has been no
corroboration.
Let me finish. There have been, back it up. There's been no corroboration presented over the past 5 weeks of this circus in the Senate. I'm not saying that it didn't happen or didn't because I wasn't there. What I'm saying is that the accusations that are uncorroborated from anyone, even people that she said were in the room, her lifelong friend who said she said was in the room, came out in sworn testimony and said that she does not recall it happening. So all right, folks, is you're jumping to conclusions.
Okay, well, it's very simple. I still find it to be very interesting when Senator Collins says that, oh, I believe that she was sexually assaulted. But was it like out of air? So who did it? Yeah, I thought so. All right, folks. Unemployment numbers came out today, and we're going to break those things down. According to the new figures, 134,000 jobs were created in the last month, well below estimates and well below the average monthly gain of 201,000 over the last 12 months. Now, the unemployment rate is 3.7%, the lowest since 1969, and we were in the middle of the Vietnam War. It's also 3.7% for all Americans, for African Americans. Double that, it's 6%. Now, here to break the numbers down for us is Christine Brody. She's an economist with Alabama A&M. Hey, Christine, how you doing? So whenever we look at these numbers, they throw them out there and, they go, oh, here's the unemployment numbers. But the reality is you got to go behind those numbers. What is it telling us about the state of our economy?
Well, the numbers are definitely down, which is a good thing. But when you break it down by race, you'll see that African Americans are still at 6%. The numbers are down for both men and women, but when you look at the numbers for people that are 16 to 19 years old, that rate is 19.3%. Now, that's compared to 11.5% for white people. So there's definitely still a large discrepancy when you look at the races. Unemployment rates are down, but how do we explain this discrepancy between the races?
And also, we still see that when it comes to these numbers, when you talk about these jobs, we also have to deal with the issue of wages. Because, again, you can say, fine, I have a job, but the question is, can you live on that job?
Exactly. And when you look at the numbers, the number of people that are employed part-time is up around 280,000. So people are employed, but how do you live on a part-time wage? And you can say that more people are getting jobs, but if they're getting part-time jobs, they're probably not going to get benefits. They're not going to get stock options, 401ks, etc. So just having a job isn't really the answer. Furthermore, when you look at the numbers, there are around 1.6 million people who are discouraged workers. Of those, 383,000 aren't even looking for a job because they don't think there are any jobs available. So to simply say that the unemployment rate is down is a good thing, but you have to look at the complete picture.
All right, then. Christine Brody, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot for giving us that insight on the unemployment numbers. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, folks, going to go to a break. When we come back, Donald Trump is patting himself on the back saying black people are saying, ooh, thank you, 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 Donald. Who? That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
How many must die before we can really have a free and true and peaceful society? Civil rights activist Coretta Scott King.
All right, folks, HBCU Giving Day, our school today, North Carolina A&T State University, located, of course, in the state of North Carolina. Duh, it's in their name. Founded, of course, in 1891. Notable graduates, Ronald McNair, former NASA astronaut, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., plus his son, Jesse Jackson Jr., as well as the actor Terrence J. And so if you want to support North Carolina A&T, please go to ncat.edu. Folks, last night, Donald Trump had a rally, one of his usual raucous affairs, and he was just patting himself on the back. Just how black people just love him. Listen to this.
So something I'm very proud of, African-American unemployment has reached its lowest rate ever recorded. African-American poverty has reached its lowest rate ever recorded. Think of those two sound bites. The lowest unemployment, the lowest rate of poverty. So think of this.
I don't know what happened to the sound there. But let me go to our panel, of course, Wendy, Brandon, and Ray. Brandon, I love it how Trump loves to talk about black people in front of these all-white rallies. Yeah. Okay? He won't come talk to black people. He won't do black media. You won't see him do a town hall in front of black people. It's not like he will sit down with civil rights activists, actually have a discussion. He'll have a hand-picked group of black pastors he'll speak to, and then he'll tout all this sort of stuff, and nobody gives any pushback when it comes to facts. I can lay down a litany of examples where his policies have actually been a detriment to black folks. What's up with the whole patting himself on the back like black? Okay, so y'all now have the tape fixed. Okay, now y'all want to hear him say how black people are thanking him left and right. So press play.
Think of those two sound bites: the lowest unemployment, the lowest rate of poverty. So think of this. How does you're African American? How do you vote for somebody else? I've done more for them. In 2 years, African Americans are coming up and they're saying, Mr. President, thank you. Thank you. And their median income is the highest. But not only for African American, for Asian, for Hispanic.
I'm looking for these black people. I'm looking for these black people. I'm trying to figure out where are they located. Brandon, what the hell is he talking about?
As often it is with Trump, I don't know. So you have to find someone else to be clapping and praising Trump, because no one in this room, I think, will be clapping and praising. But I will say, just to this topic of increased approval, I do think, again, as we saw in 2000, in this year's election, and maybe it was because Barack Obama, the first black president, ran in past 2 elections, but Trump did broke a trend as far as black support. He got 8%, which is higher than the past 2 Republican nominees. But again, that could have been because Barack Obama was on the other side of the ticket. But also last month, you saw in August, or 2 months ago, NAACP did a poll, NAACP, that showed about 21% approval in the black community. Now again, NAACP poll may be wrong.
Hold up.
It's historically been low.
I'm aware of the poll. Okay. And then Rasmussen had their report. There's poll, which was
Rasmussen's most accurate poll during the 2016 election.
Hold up, stop. First of all,
that's fact.
If we're gonna talk about Rasmussen,
that's fact.
Rasmussen is the closest to Comedy Central polling.
It was most accurate during 2016.
Now the Pew polling. Now the Pew polling also came out, and it was about 6 to 8% of black support. Ray Baker, again, 6 to 8%.
Oh, okay.
Pew, yeah.
But again, Rasmussen,
6 to 8.
It
ain't 30. Okay, how about this here, Brandon? Or the black people you know, the 35% of the black people you know think Trump is doing great?
Privately, I would say about 20%. I think in line with NAACP.
Which means the Rasmussen poll is BS. Ray Baker, go ahead.
So I think that President Trump it really entertains us whenever he has these grandiose references to black people that he knows that think he's doing so well. Yet we have a difficult time to see anyone who's a black person who's not on his payroll being able to say very good things for him. Listen, Brandon just went to the mat on our last segment for a conservative justice who's been accused of sexual assault and yet is standing 10 feet away from President Trump. That should tell us everything we need to know about the distance that African Americans, even African American Republicans, have regarding the president.
Wendy?
You know, this president often has these entertaining exchanges amongst himself, but I do not know who these black people are. And if you could show me these black people, I would love to meet them. What really bothers me is this type of generic language that he uses. The African Americans believe. Like, it's just so condescending. And I think in his head, he thinks he's the great white hope. So I just don't know any of these African Americans, but furthermore, I think that this is just a string and a tile in the mosaic of lies that is the Trump administration.
Okay, well, I contact NAACP and find out who they talk to in the
Brandon,
poll. That would be one. You asked a question, I gave you an answer.
Nobody,
I'm giving you an answer.
And I'm giving you an answer.
I didn't ask the question. You asked the question.
I didn't ask the question.
Who did black people?
There are no black people who are stopping Trump in the street to pat him on the back. Furthermore, if you look at any of these rallies that he has done, please point out to me the black people, because we all know if there were black people, they would be standing right behind him. So do not sit here and try to corroborate, as you put it, evidence that is not even there. These black people do not, quote unquote, support him. And I would like to say,
let me finish. Let me finish. You just criticized Trump for speaking generalities. Here you are speaking. Black people don't like.
I was about to make this comment. Black people are not monolithic.
But you're speaking like they're monolithic.
Brandon.
You did it. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Black people are not monolithic. Okay. They could vote for and they could be a part of any party they choose. But for him to sit here and make such blanket statements that we all know are false are beyond the pale, especially as the president. Thank you, Brandon.
Bottom line is, Trump gonna lie. He gonna lie. He gonna lie all damn day. So let's just not confuse this with anything else. And the bottom line is this here: Donald Trump. See, this is also why you know he lying. If things were so great for black people, then why is he trying to get rid of the U.S. Minority Supply Development Council? Why? That's the only federal agency that is there to help minority businesses grow. His budget wants to wipe them completely out. That's a fact. If he's doing so great among black people, why is it he's refused to go speak to the NAACP? Why has he refused to go speak to the National Urban League, a group that George W. Bush spoke to 4 or 5 times in the 8 years he was president? Why is it that he won't go actually sit down with any members of the black press? Why is it that he actually won't sit down and talk to various black organizations? It is because he has nothing to say. That is why. Folks, when it comes to black people, Donald Trump is all hat and no cattle. That's one of the phrases that we have in Texas. That means he talks a good game, but he can't back it up. He knows it, and we know it. All right, folks, some good news here. Our friend, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, is one of the recipients of the prestigious MacArthur Grant, $625,000 over the next 5 years. Barber, of course, the pastor of the Goldsboro, North Carolina Greenlee Christian Church, former state conference chair of the NAACP, still on the board of the NAACP, one of 25 winners of the 2018 Genius Grant. So congratulations to my fraternity brother, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber. Sorry, no Sigmas this year, Ray. I'm sorry. I'm sure y'all tried.
Roland.
What?
Roland. I'm the Roland.
What?
I was getting along so nice today too.
What? I just want to go ahead and make a distinction who's an alpha and who didn't become a MacArthur Genius Grant winner. All right, y'all. When the award was announced, Barber was being arrested in Chicago at a protest for raising the minimum wage. And so he also, of course, is going to be joining us on Monday, Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we look forward to having him talk about this and what his plans are for the Poor People's Campaign and what he's going to do with those dollars. Also, shout out to Lisa Borders. She also is going to be joining the, this is my iPad here, Lisa Borders is going to be leaving the WNBA, and she's going to the Time's Up movement. She's going to be leading that particular movement. And so shout out to Lisa Borders. She's been, of course, running the WNBA for the past 3 years. And so she'll be the first CEO and executive director of the Time's Up movement. So that's pretty interesting there. So look forward to that. And so we're going to do this here. We're going to go to a break right now. And we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm gonna play for y'all this video, and I can't wait to get our panel to weigh in.
I saw that.
I can't wait to get. So, of course, I was gonna have Michelle Hope, sexologist, here. She's running a little bit late. She's texting me as we speak, but I can't wait to get y'all thoughts on this video and just how some folks are a trip when it comes to when you post certain things on social media. So, going to a break. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, welcome back. So earlier today, Shanae Hall, a radio personality out of Atlanta, posted this video on Instagram, and I saw it, and so I want to play it for y'all, so then I'm going to explain to you. So check this out. So here it is. So I posted the video, and I said on it, because first of all, when I saw the video, I then Shazammed the song, because I love soca music. Shazam didn't come up. So I was like, okay. So what I've done beforehand, I asked my followers, yo, who knows? I said, first of all, the Caribbean sisters getting it in. Who knows this song? People like, oh my God, you ain't posting that because of the song. Even though previously I had posted folks asking about soca music because I couldn't actually Shazam it. So all these people start posting, oh, you trying to be slick? Oh my God, you shouldn't be doing this. It's inappropriate. You a married man. What would your wife think? And I'm sitting there going, are y'all that damn crazy? Losing your mind over this? I said, and actually 10 minutes after I posted this, one of my Instagram followers told me the name of the song, Turner, by Kevin Little, who calls himself the Soca King. Now, what I find to be interesting, this is where I want our panel with, what I find to be interesting is, and I also said this here, I said, clearly a bunch of y'all have never actually traveled to the Caribbean. Because if anybody has gone to, and I've been to St. Croix, St. Thomas, Barbados, been to Jamaica, been to the Bahamas, been to St. Kitts, hell, been to Miami. Yeah. If anybody has gone to any of those places, that ain't nothing. But it's interesting. Or I've been to Ghana. I've seen African dance as well. If y'all really want to go there, we could show you the Coming to America scene choreographed by Debbie Allen with the dances as well. But it's interesting how black folks go, oh my God, what are you doing? You should be showing that. Whenever you go to any of those black countries, that's just a regular part of how folks dance. What's up with us? Are we somehow like, oh my God, oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? Go ahead, Wendy. Don't be scared. Right.
I think it's a regular part. But I also think that there is a sexual connotation to it, and I'm coming from a Nigerian, so we dance. You know, we
What's the sexual connotation?
Because when a woman is moving her hips in such a way, it's in a sense, it has a sexual nature to it, you know.
But she's dancing.
But she's dancing.
So when I was in St. Kitts when they had Carnival. That's not
even close. Right.
No, actually, that was like light compared to what I saw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm making the point though that I watched some of the reaction from some of these people, and they actually losing their minds, and I'm going, seriously, if you actually go to any of these countries and you hear that type of music, that's how folks are dancing.
Yeah, I think it shows, like you said, the ignorance of our culture. I mean, it is part of our culture, whether you're going to South America or Africa, the same thing. It shouldn't be as foreign as it is, but here in America, it kind of is a little bit foreign. But to that point, I'm glad you didn't show the video of you and Jamil Hill. I thought that was about to show on there.
Okay, all right.
Please don't show that video.
No.
Please don't show that video.
First of all, I can show what I want to. Okay. And so same thing. I played a bit. So here was me and Jamil Hill getting it in at NABJ.
No, that's different.
Lord. Hold on, no. Hold on. No, what's different? Because there's two of us in the video and it was 5 seconds long?
No, that's different. That was playful. That was two friends enjoying themselves. Like, that's different. I think it's
what? Ray, Baker, go ahead. I mean, I just find it really interesting, Ray, how all these folks were just going crazy, and it's like just how dare you? And what really got me was that's just inappropriate as a married man to post.
My husband would not post that.
Roland, I would channel our good friend Dr. Greg Carr, who spends a lot of time talking to us about black people in the United States simply being Africans in the U.S. And so what I think you saw there were a lot of the folks that are responding to you are folks who are so good at being American, they forgot how to be African, right? Those who the African Americans are. Because in many ways, our dance, our culture, our joy, our celebration is vibrant, is fun, and it's engaging, and it is not repressed. And so, unfortunately, if we look back through the history of the United States, many of those who became what we call founding fathers were super repressed. So a good time doesn't look like a good time to everybody. It looks like let me clutch my pearls because apparently that's not right. And another point I would make, unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to travel to all of the various places that you have regarding St. Kitts and the Caribbean and even to the continent and the motherland. But I will say this. If you go to a party at an HBCU campus, at some point they're going to play, the soca music.
But
and so as a little brown boy from West Baltimore, I learned soca there. As a little brown boy from West Baltimore, I learned about what the Yoruba and what the Igbo people would get down to and how we would rock to. Because in one way or another, we all are going to get this mix and get this party. So if you see music and
they ain't got to play soca. They going to play back that ass up by Juvenile.
Right.
No. See, if we're going to have this conversation, let's have this conversation.
Let's have it. And so the truth of the matter is,
EU,
don't hide behind
DC, the butt.
Don't hide behind soca. Just say
No. See, that's where you're wrong.
That's what I'm saying.
I ain't hide behind soca.
I think that's what you guys are saying.
That's where you're wrong.
You're saying culture.
No. I'm not hiding
true.
behind soca because I'm telling you, as somebody who previously heard a soca jam, Shazammed it, couldn't find it. I posted on Instagram saying, yo, does anybody know this song?
So that was the only video that had that soca jam?
Hell, I don't. Okay.
That's what you saw.
Okay, hold on, Wendy. How am I going to find another?
I'm talking to you like you my husband. I'm talking to you like you my
husband. But I ain't your husband.
So is that the only video?
I help you out.
Is that the only video? Is that the only video?
Okay, hold on. Let me help you out. How am I going to find a song with the video? How am I going to find a video with the song when they know what the song is? Uh-oh.
Hold
on. No, let me repeat it, because since you're a doctor and all at Johns Hopkins, how am I gonna find a video of a song when I don't even know the name of the song? And the point of posting it was, do y'all know the name of the song?
Okay.
I thought so. See, it's amazing how when you get to the reason why you actually did something, how they get real quiet.
Who's
how
that?
they get you?
But all these opinions
and others.
All these opinions, the only opinion that matters is, what did your wife say?
Oh, hold up. And matter of fact, on one of these posts, she answered it. She said,
who?
Stay in your damn lane.
Oh, yes.
That's settled right there.
But see, that's the other piece right there. When you have people, because when you say, oh, my husband would have posted this. If he did, whatever. If she posted it, whatever. I think we got people who got too many damn hang-ups, who also, probably the reason they tripping, because they got questionable issues in their marriages.
No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's not do that.
No.
I'm
telling you.
I've been married for 7
I'm looking at the
years,
comments.
going on 8 years.
Oh, that's cute. That's fine. Yeah, we about to hit 20. But go ahead, Ray Baker. Go ahead.
Look. I am putting my hands up and slowly backing away like the Homer Simpson meme because I have no ring. I am not a married man. I have no dog in this fight. But I do think it's interesting that you bring that up, Roland. And you were right, man. I mean, there are a number of Americans who face a great deal of repression. We police what women can wear. We police how women ought to dance. We police all this about women. We police it time and time again. When in many parts, it just strips them of their humanity. And part of their humanity, part of our African humanity, is just the funness of music, of dance. You alluded to it, and you're right. We're not hiding behind soca. There's EU's the butt. There's Juvenile's back that thing up, and that's the clean version. There's tons of ways.
This unfiltered. Back that ass up.
Cisco, the song. Come on now.
No, and here's the deal. Trust me, I know somebody saying, yeah, but you a man. Let me say it again. I ain't apologizing to no damn body for posting it. And guess what? I got the name of the song, which is what the whole point is. Then I posted another video of me listening to the song, letting the folks know. And so it's real simple. If all y'all folks so damn uptight, yeah, I want to see you at the next black tie ball where you got your gown on and your suit on, and all the songs Ray mentioned come out, and all the songs I mentioned come out, you're going to have your butt on the dance floor, getting your groove on, dropping like it's hot, backing that thing up, whining, twirling, spinning, and twerking. You know it, and I know it. And guess what? I have seen PhDs do it. I've seen reverends do it. I've seen CEOs do it. I've seen all kind of folks do it, men and women. So why don't we stop fronting when it comes to putting something out publicly when you know damn well that's what you do. You don't want nobody to know. See, I ain't scared. You know why? Because I'm a grown-ass man. That's the difference between me and some of the rest of y'all. Wendy, Brandon, Ray, appreciate y'all being on the show. That's my commentary going into the weekend, because I got to go, damn it, because Maxwell going on stage in 55 minutes. And so I got to go see my boy here at MGM Grand in Washington, D.C. All right, folks, don't forget, what?
Prince George's County. MGM is in Prince George's.
Damn about that. It's in D.C. Ain't nobody talking about y'all specific. What the hell? Well, guess I don't care about your county. And damn it, Maxwell at MGM in D.C. Everybody know that. You ain't never heard anybody saying, I'm going to MGM in Maryland. No, they said, I'm going in D.C. Get over, you know doggone well. But yeah, okay, whatever. Anyway, folks, support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. And also, if you got a video of yourself getting your soca move on, go ahead and send it to us, and I'll run it on Monday. Why? Damn it, Wendy, because I ain't your husband, and I can do it. All right, y'all have a great weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday from Los Angeles. Holla!